being a student athlete is just a unique experience in itself. I was raised to have really strong academic values and rigor. My parents always really pushed academics on me. I was in honors classes, honestly, for no reason other than to just get college credit. And for them, I was not the smartest in my class at all. It was just really to kind of shape me and challenge me, helping student athletes in the future kind of learn their student athlete identity and how those can coincide and how they can just transition either into pro sport or out of athletics in general to a working profession, because I think we can forget about the career development and kind of even the personal development, whether it's your faith, your well-being, no matter what it is. I think that's easily kind of put on the back burner when you have a lot of athlete and student roles and responsibilities. So
What is one of your favorite Louisville volleyball memories?
Ooh, there's so many. The first time we went to the Final Four in Columbus. So I would say that's one of my favorites, but also, of course, we know we have the Pitt rivalry. So I would say when we beat Pitt last year, when you and I played together.
Imagine facing a challenge every day that could hold you back. But for me, type 1 diabetes isn't a limit. It's a reason to inspire others. Spencer Stand is here to show kids that they can chase their dreams, no matter the obstacle. Through game day experiences, personal workouts, and virtual chats, Spencer Stand brings support, hope, and empowerment to kids with diabetes. Join me in making a stand. Visit spencerstand.com to learn more.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Court. Today we have another special episode. We have a U of L volleyball alumni who was a 3-time All-ACC selection, spent 2 years as a team captain, 2-time ACC Defensive Player of the Year, 2022 ABC All-American, I have to catch my breath, this is such a long bio, 2021 and 2022 ACC Scholar Athlete of the Year. She led the nation in blocks per set multiple times throughout her career, and she's currently working as a postgraduate intern in leadership development with the NCAA. Whew, we have Amaya Tillman here today, guys.
Hello, hi Tori.
Hi Amaya, this is so fun. I'm so excited.
Me too. I've been waiting for this since I saw the podcast.
I know, it's so fun. It's just such a treat because I love learning about the current athletes and it's just so fun to see what U of L is doing right now. But man, it is fun to look back on, the products of some of these programs and the amazing things you have done and then what you're doing right now. So that's what I'm really excited about to talk to you about and, hear all about it. But let's just start with your journey.
Yeah, so I started playing volleyball. I think it was maybe the second or third sport I was involved in. I played volleyball, basketball, and tennis growing up. But I remember I went to the YMCA for basketball practice and I saw them playing volleyball, just some random girls. And I remember I looked at my parents and I was like, I want to play volleyball. So it was kind of just spur of the moment. I don't know if they would have put me in it if I didn't see it at the YMCA going to basketball practice. But they put me in it, and that was my first intro into volleyball was the YMCA when I was about 8 years old, I think. And then it just stuck. I always loved it. I stayed playing basketball and tennis kind of throughout my teens, but volleyball was the one that stuck, especially in high school as I started getting recruited. But I think what I like the most about volleyball is just that it's a team sport for sure. That's why tennis was dropped, because I couldn't do the mental struggle of being an individual sport athlete. Yep. But, and then basketball, I was really tall and I was skinny. So I was getting knocked around down in the paint. And so I like the non-contact of volleyball, but it's still super intense and still a fast-paced, aggressive sport without the contact. So, stuck with volleyball, and I've just loved it ever since. But my kind of story of finding Louisville is probably one of my favorite stories to tell, because I was not expecting to even visit Louisville. It was not on my list. I had not visited any ACC schools because back when I was getting recruited in about like 2018-ish, before I committed, I hadn't visited any ACC schools. The ACC was not what it is now in volleyball, and now it has totally blown up, and I love to see it. I love the ACC with all my heart. So it's kind of
amazing. I love it.
Because before then, my first offer was in 8th grade, and it was an in-state school. So I told them, I'm going to look at other schools. Obviously, I'm in 8th grade. And I looked at other Big Ten schools, Pac-12, SEC schools, because I just wanted to be in a really competitive volleyball conference and a team with great coaches. And I visited probably over 20 schools. I think I was out of high school every Friday to visit a school over the weekend.
Oh my gosh.
Very grateful that I have parents that are able to do that for me. Because that's a lot of traveling, especially on top of club volleyball and other sports. So then I was actually going to commit to a different school, and some things just ended up not working with that. And then Danny became the head coach at Louisville, and I knew her from kind of getting recruited at Nebraska and going to Nebraska volleyball camps growing up. So we had kind of a prior relationship. And then I remember she emailed me and said, like, we really want you on campus. I just became the head coach at U of L, and Todd came from Kansas, so I knew him previously as well. And then I told her, I was like, no, Danny, like, I'm not going to visit any schools. Like, I'm not interested. And she was like, no, Amaya, you need to visit Louisville. It's truly a hidden gem. Like, I promise you, when you're on campus, you'll like it. And I was just like, okay, Danny, like, I'll do this for you because I like you and I knew you previously. But I honestly went on the visit not expecting to fall in love with it like I did. And I remember the exact moment I did. It was kind of where, like, the student athlete the SAC center is, and that whole street with all the athletic facilities down it, like soccer, baseball, basketball, all of those buildings. I was like, I remember I got a feeling, and that's what I tell people when I'm talking to the younger generation, is that you get a feeling for sure, I think, when you know the institution and the program is right for you. So I got that feeling, and I really should have committed, like verbally committed that day, but I think I waited, and I ended up committing on April Fool's. And so it was kind of funny because she was like, are you serious? Or is this April Fool's? And I was like, no, I'm serious, Danny.
That'd be a cruel April Fool's joke.
Yeah, it would be. That'd be horrible. But and then I fell in love with Louisville, because I'm from Topeka, Kansas. So Louisville to me is a big city. I know it's not to everyone if you're from a big city, but to me, coming from Kansas, it had a good big city vibe. But obviously, as you know, it's very homey. Like, everyone's so kind, amazing vibes. So just fell in love with athletics, fell in love with my school and the people around me. And honestly, the coaches and our team made it the best experience I think that could ever be. So
dang, gosh, there's just like so many things listening to you. Like, I know your story, I was your teammate, but like hearing you talk about it in full, and then like as you're looking back on it, so not like so many years later, but with a pretty good view of it all now, it's just really cool to hear. And like, it feels so like you taking your time, going to all the schools, like making sure you like really did your due diligence. And clearly you came to a fantastic decision and things worked out. I mean, I always say, like, I feel like the couple classes, like your class, the class above you, my class, right around our age, like everything turned out so much better than any of us could have really dreamed, honestly. Like, I don't think any of us ever really pictured the things that we would do together as a team and like what the program would become while we were there. And I don't know, I just always look back with like such a grateful heart of like getting to be a part of something that special. And people like you are a huge reason why, like you came in. And let's talk about this. Okay, freshman year, because I remember it so vividly. Your freshman year was also my first year at Louisville when I transferred in. And you come in, your recruiting class was awesome. You guys are like, I think our highest ranked recruiting class like ever, maybe something like that. And at some way, all of you guys were going to play some kind of role. And you're the first that, kind of really makes her stand. But then they put you in a different position, which I'm telling you, Danny is becoming known for. I got to talk to Reese, and obviously she had her transition to the right side and it's working out so well. But you go through that and it is hard. I remember being with you in it. Like, that was hard. Talk about freshman year a little bit.
Yeah. So, my freshman year, they put me on the right side, which I kind of was expecting. They had mentioned it recruiting me when I committed, that they wanted to try out the 6'2" and putting me on the right. And I mean, it was rough. It's definitely different when the ball's crossing your body as a right-handed hitter. Different tempo, because I was always grew up playing volleyball as a middle. And so middles at, fast tempo, right side, it's a lot higher most of the time. You always are going to have a double block, like a pretty decent block up. And so it was just a really hard adjustment for me as a player it's a completely different position and perspective when you're in the air, or just even being behind the setter is weird when you're not running a slide to me. So it was really hard. And I remember it was a tough mental battle. Like, there was a lot of times I wanted to give up. My freshman year, I was like, I can't do this. Like, I want to be a middle. I miss just blocking. I love blocking. And so I miss being in my position. But at the same time, you're a freshman, you don't want to push back on your coaches, because your coaches, for the most part, especially our staff, they know what's best, and they're going to put us in the best positions for us to succeed. But so I didn't want to kind of step on toes or give them the wrong idea that I didn't trust them. But I was able to sit down with them, which was, honestly, looking back, I'm really surprised I did that, because I was like only 18 maybe. Yeah. And I was like pulling these adults in to tell them like to put me back in the middle spot. But it was a really good conversation. And I think it was just really like open and transparent throughout. And I told them, I understand, and I'll be all for whatever you guys choose, but I think I can really contribute to this team more so as a middle than I am as a right side. And I think a lot of that was probably mental for me, just being so young and being in a new place. But I knew that if I was in the middle position, that I was going to grind to stay there. So, and I'm glad they had the belief in me and they trusted me. And I don't know why they did. So why they trusted an 18-year-old girl to go back to her position. But, they trusted me. I definitely had to work for it. It wasn't like they just put me in the starting M1 or M2 position immediately. So really thankful that they had the belief in me in that capacity, because I don't think I'd be the player or person I am now, honestly, if I didn't have that conversation and I wasn't a middle, because I wouldn't have had the confidence to be who I am today.
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense to me. And when you were talking about why you fell in love with volleyball, you didn't love the context part of basketball, but volleyball allows you to still be aggressive, still be yourself. You get to, like, my favorite thing is picturing you after a big solo blocker, big house block, and you slapping the floor and having this insane, beautiful excitement and expression like that. I mean, that's one of my favorite parts of volleyball too. We've talked about this plenty. We're very similar in that way, but I think you being able to do that as a freshman is amazing. And I think it's a testament to you. That was, I feel like, probably a big part in you growing into a leadership role, because I don't remember a time playing together that you didn't have a really big voice on the team, whether you were a freshman, a sophomore, obviously as a junior and senior, as a captain, but like your voice was always really respected. It was desired. Like, people wanted to hear from you because you see the game in a really good way. You understand people really well. You worked so hard. Like, we literally called you our workhorse. Like, you were going to do anything and everything to outwork anybody. And it paid off in so many cool ways. So I don't know. It's really cool to hear you reflect on that, because I don't know, my experience of you on the court is just like, wow, she's truly embodied everything that she, stood for and worked for. And then I think it's a testament to the coaching staff too, like them being able to, like you said, trust you in that and make a decision to switch something. And that year was interesting. Like we start off, we're rocky, we're pretty good. Like we know how good we can be. I remember us all being like, okay, we are talented. We can be really good. We're working through lineup changes. We have injuries. We have a major injury. And then it literally looks like we're not going to make the tournament for a little while. And then all of a sudden we have this shift. And I'm talking about 2019 for anybody that doesn't know. It's a year that not a lot of people remember except for us. They remember the end. They remember the, Cinderella story. But throughout that year, that was a year that shaped the future of Louisville volleyball in a lot of ways. And it was people coming into themselves and into the leaders they were going to be. It was a breakout year for Aiko, for you, so many different people that had huge impacts on this program. But man, I don't know. I love reflecting on those years and I don't know, just seeing, I felt like, yes, you grew up a lot, like seeing you at the end of your time. I'm like, man, she's amazing. But like, I always kind of looked at you that way, like you kind of came in, you had your crap together, you cared about school, you cared about doing things the right way. Like a lot of things you don't see in 18-year-old young women. How do you feel like being well-rounded and balanced, helped you as an athlete? And then also how, vice versa, like how caring about volleyball and being out of school for a reason kind of helped with the other parts of life, whether it be social life or, school or anything like that.
Yeah, I think being a student athlete is just a unique experience in itself. And so I was raised to have really strong academic values and rigor. My parents always really pushed academics on me. I was in honors classes, honestly, for no reason other than to just get college credit. And for them, I was not the smartest in my class at all. It was just really to kind of shape me and challenge me. And I think that's carried in just who I am now. I love a challenge. I'm always going to value challenges. And so I think kind of like you said, the well-roundedness of being a person, of being myself is just taking care of the little things, whether it's inside volleyball, like in the locker room, on the court, or if it's outside. So honestly, the little things to me, I would never miss a class unless I was playing in a game. Even if I was sick, I would go to class unless I really could not be there, which honestly, probably not the best, especially now with COVID and everything we went to. But before COVID, I would still go to class and everything. But that's because I really cared about my academics. But I think being a student athlete, you're forced to have that time management because you have to, or else your schedule and your life is really going to struggle if you don't manage your time well. And also just being a good teammate. I think you were a great example of that too, just as a leader, because my leadership journey, I think, really started not only just playing club, but then when you're in a college volleyball setting and, everyone's the best of the best kind of, they were the best in their high school, but now you come and everyone, it's a whole different level. It's a whole different pace of the game. And so I think having upperclassmen leaders and just leaders in general who are willing to take people under their wing. I feel like you took me under your wing in the leadership sense. And so I would say that really helped me too, to just gain my voice. And I really care about relationships, which I'm sure I'll touch on later, but I really care about relationships. And so I think for me, being a student athlete isn't just, the athlete part is usually first for people, but for me, it was being a student. But obviously, I think if you take care of little things, it'll all fall into place in both realms, both of your identities of being a student and being an athlete.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking of as you're talking. You just cared about doing the little things. And we talked about it in our gym. If you're too big for the little things, you're too small for the big things. And it's so funny that you say that you learned from me, and I appreciate you saying that. That's so flattering. But I feel like I learned so much from you, and it was so such a fun perspective to have someone younger than me teach me a lot about relationships, a big one, empathy, and leading with being able to be a strong leader, somebody that's vocal and can put their foot in the ground if need be, but also at the end of the day, you care more about the person next to you, not the player next to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you just really taught me that. And one of the times I remember that being so pivotal is in 2020. Everyone is facing unprecedented things. We're all going through COVID. We are in the midst of radical social injustice and dealing with that. And I remember leaning on you so heavily because I didn't know, my experience was never going to be the same as you or any of our other teammates. And being in a leadership position on a team, that's really unique because for a while, like you can be a leader on a team when you're all having the same experience. That's really easy. But when everybody's having a different experience, that's hard. And I remember, leaning on you in that and leaning on your wisdom and your perspective. And I appreciate that you allowed that space for me. So I kind of want you to talk about a little bit, because that feels like such a big part of who you are is, like you said, those relationships, but then, caring about the person as a whole, caring about other things, being involved with other things. You were involved in score and sack. Just talk about that and like the impact that has made on you.
Yeah. So I love that you remember that, because that's one of the things I actually talked about in my interview to get the NCAA position I have now is just, during those unprecedented times, everyone has different like feelings and thoughts on everything, and everyone's feelings should be respected. And especially on a team with so many different backgrounds and experiences, I think it was only right for us to all come together as a group. And so I remember like we really spearheaded that to make sure that we could have an open discussion that was really respectful of everyone's thoughts on everything, COVID, the injustices, everything. And so I think, and I was involved in SCORE, like you said, the Student Athletes of Color affinity group on campus, and that really helped me too, because I think from an advocacy standpoint, growing up in Kansas, I definitely had really strong beliefs like on advocacy and especially surrounding people of color and racial injustices. But being a part of an affinity group like that and having teammates with so many different, we have like international, like so many different types of identities, I think that it really gave me the confidence of being a great advocate, because we're given this amazing platform being college volleyball players and just being like role models to the future generations to really advocate, because whatever you believe in, like stand on it strong. So I think with that, I just remember in those times, no matter, even if you have differences of beliefs or whatever it is, at the end of the day, you need to be a unit on the volleyball court and in the locker room. You may not be friends with everyone, you may not agree with everyone, but when it comes down and you have to get on the court and be a family, like we were a family. So I think all my experience at Louisville really shaped that.
Yeah. And that's so sweet, because obviously not everybody that's been involved in sports has had that same team experience. I think we're really fortunate and lucky, and teams like that don't come around super often, but I think it's truly another testament to the coaching staff that they truly recruited people, good people, and they were really intentional about that, and they still do. And it's something that everybody in the program so deeply cares about, is that you're already, we believe it's almost like everybody comes in with the belief that you're already a good person. Now let's go get the absolute most out of you. That's kind of like the feel I get with the program. Like I'm going to assume the best in everybody when they step into the locker room, onto the floor for the first time. But at the same time, we're going to challenge each other to become even more, become even better. And I'm so thankful for that, because obviously I felt like I got so much out of myself as a volleyball player. I got way more out of myself as a person in my time at U of L. And I feel like you're somebody that has a very similar experience in that. And I feel like it's a product of my environment. I don't think that's anything I really did. It truly is people like you and the coaches and other leaders, Aiko, like those kind of people pulling it out of you.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of that, like you mentioned, is because of the coaches and even the staff, like our strength and conditioning, our director of ops, like they're amazing people and humans before anything. And so they had great leadership in, as you know, like our roles meetings. Like we would have roles meetings like a couple times every season to just go over like, who's in what positions, like starting wise, serving subs, etc. And it was sometimes it's really hard conversations, but we're adults at the end of the day. And I think it helped our team because we had to have those hard conversations, but it was never in like a demeaning or degrading way. It was very like family and we were just always a unit. Never once were we ever divided, or there was never drama, which honestly, I think people would be like, okay, there has to be some kind of drama, but there truly never was with us. Maybe it lasted like during
2 seconds.
During practice.
Yeah.
But it was never prolonged. And so I just love that about us. And if there was ever a time someone needed to address something, we had the player-to-player mentality of go to the person or the coach and have a mature, respectful conversation, because that's the only way that we're going to make it far. And I think that's why we did make it so far and make history in Louisville volleyball, even the ACC. We made ACC history.
Yeah.
Like, that is amazing.
Yeah. No, seriously. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think they truly set such a top-down example. You know, like everything they were asking us to do, they were already exemplifying themselves. And I mean, gosh, that is just, they're such, like you said, they're great people, and it's support staff, it's coaching staff, it's every single person involved with the program. So, I mean, a huge shout out to Louisville volleyball staff and support staff, and just the higher ups for, you know, hiring great people. I think that's a huge thing, and something that is so undervalued in college athletics, but then just like in our world in general. And the world of sport can be so hard to do that. You know, there's a lot of really talented players, or really, you know, genius coaches, offensive minded coaches, defensive minded, whatever, that don't have the skills, the people skills to build a great program. Or turn something around, or bring the most out of people, whatever. And so I think for us to be a part of that, like I said, I'm so grateful. I look back on it with like just the fondest of memories. But I'm so curious, you now transitioning out of volleyball, but you're staying in the world of sport. How do you feel like that team mentality has, and everything that you've learned has helped you transition into the professional world and with your role at the NCAA?
Yeah, I think it was definitely team mentality, but I think really it was kind of how we mentioned earlier, having like knowing your identity as both a student and an athlete. So I also was involved in SAC, the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, which you were also a part of. And so I think that just really helped, because we were kind of the liaison between the student athlete body and then communicating to our athletic department, like what we wanted, different changes within the ACC or the institution, the athletic department. And so we were kind of the voice for student athletes if you're a part of SAC. And I think in my first 2 years of playing volleyball, I was really focused in my athletic identity as a person. Yeah. And just because you're wanting to start as a freshman and you're wanting to, you know, have amazing stats, to be a great captain, leader, whatever. But then I really realized in my last 2 years, okay, I don't want to play pro. So what do I need to do to lead this team, but also kind of take myself to the next level after? Because you have to think about, even if you do play pro, like volleyball is going to end at some point, or even it might be a hiatus if you're a woman and you want to have kids. Like, it's going to kind of come to a hiatus at some point. And so I thought how I could best prepare myself for that. And I was really pouring into those student athlete development programs like SCORE, like SAC, and Captain's Corner too. So if you're a captain at U of L, you're part of Captain's Corner, and all the captains of all the sports teams come together, and it's kind of like leadership development programming. So it's really awesome, and I think that's kind of shaped me into my decision of not playing my fifth year. So for those who don't know, during my fifth year, I did not play volleyball for a ton of reasons, but really it was to work on my professional development. And so I was given the opportunity to be a grad assistant in football academic services and player development at University of Louisville. So I was in grad school, my last year of grad school at the time, and it was such an amazing experience. It truly was. Like, I was not expecting to be in academic services. Initially, I was supposed to be in NIL, and then
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was supposed to be in NIL, and then I did that for a couple months, and then they really needed people in academic services. So, and they knew I would do player development in the future. So, yeah, they put me in that, and it was amazing. And I was working with football every day, like doing their study hall and their objective sheets. But I really learned them as people, like people first rather than athletes. And I think that's who I am at my core, is just valuing the person before the athlete. Because outside of the court, you have so many things going on, maybe with your family, back home, what's going on, your schoolwork, whatever. So I think just making that decision, I really want to lean into helping student athletes in the future kind of learn their student athlete identity and how those can coincide and how they can just transition either into pro sport or out of athletics in general to like a working profession, because I think a lot of times we can forget about the career development and kind of even the personal development, whether it's your faith, your well-being, no matter what it is. I think that's easily kind of put on the back burner when you have a lot of athlete and student roles, so and responsibilities. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on all of that.
And I love that, like, you touched on it earlier, that like relationships are huge to you. And each time you've talked about an organization or a club or a role that you've got to have, you've talked about some kind of relationship in that, you know, and how you work to build that. And I think it's also, like you said, kind of building that relationship with yourself, you know, like learning who you are outside of volleyball, outside your sport, to then, okay, that's going to serve me, one, as a person, a teammate, a daughter, maybe a future wife, a spouse, whatever. But it's also like putting me on a career path. You know, I think I'm a huge believer in, like, I think there's a lot of qualified people out there that might not have like the right degree, but they're super employable because they've learned how to work with other people, to, you know, manage conflict, to, you know, be a workhorse. I think you are just like, it doesn't surprise me that you had this, and I won't call it smooth because I'm sure there were struggles in certain ways for you, but a smoother transition out of volleyball into the workforce, because you just always had that focus. You know, you always cared about, you know, person over player, but at the same time, you gave your all to both. And I think that's what's so interesting and something that a lot of people don't think can coexist. And I think I talked to Nyla Harris, women's basketball player, a couple of weeks ago, and it's just like resounding in my head, something she said. She's like, I knew I wanted to go play pro from an early age. And she's like, part of my reason for wanting to go play pro is like, I'm already pouring all this time, whether I want to go pro or not, I'm going to pour this time in, and I'm going to give it 100% all the time because I have this goal. But at the same time, that's going to make me a better person too. You know, it's going to make me better. And that's why she, you know, does it. And she's like, well, why wouldn't I put all this time in? And, you know, so I don't know. It's just it's just a really cool perspective that you have. But I'm curious, tell us more about your role at the NCAA right now.
Yeah, so I am a postgraduate intern in leadership development. There's a lot of different departments that you can be a postgraduate intern at the NCAA, and it's a pretty competitive application and interview process. So I had like phone interviews and in-person interviews that were like a week, like a whole weekend. So it's very competitive, especially when you're an LD. But one of my favorite things about my internship now is it's a cohort of like 32 or 34 of us. Okay. And I would say over half of us are student athletes. So it still feels like you're on a team. And it's really nice that you still get that teamwork vibe. And then, but yeah, with leadership development specifically, we basically plan and put together, facilitate programs for student athletes, coaches, and administrators. So right now, our next program coming up is Student Athlete Leadership Forum, and it's a 4-day program in Charlotte, North Carolina. And the NCAA flies out all these student athletes that get selected. It's about 200 to 300 student athletes and coaches, administrators, and it's a completely like leadership development, personal development week. And it's really cool because you hear a lot of stories of people on and off the court. And it gets pretty emotional. And I'm a very empathetic person. So I think in my role, I do a lot of pre-program stuff and on-site stuff as well. But when the pre-program stuff gets hard, because it's a lot of office work, I really just remind myself, when you're in the program and you see how much it's impacting people, like it truly makes all the difference. And I remember as a student athlete, I went to a couple of these leadership development programs, and some other former U of L athletes did as well. And so it's really cool to see that the University of Louisville has athletes that are really invested in their leadership and personal development off the court, because like we mentioned, that translates completely to who you are as an athlete, as a person. And I'll say one of my favorite stories working in my internship now is this is Career in Sports Forum this summer, and we had a participant, and he has just been going through a really hard time mentally. And he said before this program, he's just in a really dark place. And he said he remembers getting the email that he got accepted into the program, and it kind of like flipped things around for him. And he came to the program. It was like a 3-day program, and it just motivated him to see the positive in things and have a complete mindset shift. And now he is completely motivated to make a difference in his community at his athletic department. And that's what it is. Even if it was just that one person that we impacted, it makes all the difference for me. So I think that's why I love student athlete development, leadership development, and just my role right now, because you can see directly the impact you're making on these people.
Man, that is so cool. And it's such a role that fits you, being your friend, being your teammate, that just fits you so well. And you were already living a lot of that before this role, but to now see you, live it out, but then also help other people live it out is really, really special. Okay. I want to go back to volleyball just for a quick sec, because I'm curious. You've had some of the most epic, you've been a part of the most epic moments in Louisville volleyball history. There truly isn't one of those memorable times in U of L volleyball history in, the recent years that you were not a huge part of. So with all of those to choose from, what is one of your favorite Louisville volleyball memories?
Oh, there's so many. I would say the first time we went to the Final Four in Columbus, I think just because I would have never expected to go to a Final Four. I grew up and my parents would take me to Final Fours, and I never really saw myself in that. I knew I wanted to play college volleyball and that I would probably be successful in some sense, but the Final Four is a very big stage, and it's something that not a lot of people get to experience, especially Division I. That's tons of people watching you, and it's a nationally televised event. So it's really cool. So I would say that's one of my favorites, but also, of course, we know we have the Pitt rivalry. So I would say when we beat Pitt our last year, when you and I played together.
Really? Not your last year?
I mean, honestly, anytime, but
for sure, obviously, we all love a good rivalry.
Yeah, but that rivalry is always insane. So I would say anytime we played Pitt and beat them, it's probably my favorite.
No, for real.
Yeah, but also, of course, being on a Final Four stage, it's just really cool. I remember specifically walking on the court, and they had all those quotes on the court, on the Terraflex. Cool. And it was just, I don't even know, honestly, everyone, how they selected those quotes, but they really spoke to me in the moment, and it really centered me in that moment, because I think it can be really daunting when you're on this big stage and everyone's watching you and supporting you, and you don't want to let people down. But I remember seeing those quotes and just being with my team, and it just felt amazing, and I was really, I felt really kind of grateful in that moment.
Yeah, I agree. And it was such a culmination of everything that had been put into it. I remember we talked about it that year, and it's been talked about since, that year didn't feel like it was just that year. It was honestly every year that the coaches had been there, from 2017 when they first came in, won the ACC, to not winning it in ACC, not winning it in 2018 or 2019, to then winning again in building it all back up and then going undefeated in the regular season. I mean, to talk about to get to experience the things we did with the culture that we had, amazing. But how did we get to experience that plus an undefeated regular season? I mean, that is just amazing. And I feel like it was one of those times that truly changed the trajectory of a lot of our careers, whether that be in volleyball or outside. Like, it really shaped us as people. And I think we allowed it to, not because it was like, oh, we're so good, we're this successful, like, because none of us felt like it was because of me or because of this other person or because of just that one coach, or it was truly every single person involved. And it was like this, like, just beautiful synergistic group that, like you said it earlier, like, there wasn't drama. There might have been strife, but it was healthy and it was good conflict, and we worked through it and it made us better. And it's so cool, but there's so many real life lessons to take from that. You know, like, you witness it in family, you witness it in your job now. I'm still witnessing it as a volleyball player still, you know, all these different ways. And I don't know, to have those experiences is just pretty amazing. But I love that you said 2021 Final Four, because that's obviously my favorite. But I didn't get to play in a national championship game like you did the next year. So man, yeah, just so many cool memories.
Yeah.
Okay, so last question. I know you're somebody that cares about legacy and cares about leaving an impact. You're leaving an impact on people every day. You left an amazing legacy at U of L. Your name's up on walls, but people remember the person you are. What do you want your legacy to be everywhere you touch, whether it's at the NCAA right now, at a different role at some point in the future, beyond, as, you know, anybody? What legacy do you want to leave?
I would say the legacy I want to leave is just to champion others. So kind of my goals in the future would be to work in student athlete development or player development. I'm really interested in working in volleyball player development in the future. And so I think I want to leave my mark championing others on and off the court, the field, whatever it is. Like, I want them to be the best person they can be, because especially when you're a professional athlete in the future, you have a lot going on. Like, that is your job. And I think, I'm sure as you've experienced, like, it's a lot different than college volleyball. So I think there's a lot of space for people to help the next generation, because volleyball is blowing up. And so I would say just, I want volleyball to blow up and be like the coolest, biggest women's sport ever.
Yes.
But I think there needs to be people who are also supporting those athletes on and off the court, and their families too. Like, family is a part of the athlete and the person. So I would say that's how I want to leave my legacy, is just someone who is an empathetic person who wants to champion others.
Well, that is how I remember you, among other amazing things. You are just a gem. You left such an impact on so many different people, me being one of them. And I'm just so thankful for the time that we got to share the court together, but I'm more thankful for our friendship and the way that we're still able to connect and champion each other on. So thank you for sharing your story and just, giving such good wisdom and insight into your journey of figuring out you as a person, being bigger than an athlete, but also knowing how, they really impact each other in a lot of positive ways. So thank you again.
Thank you. I am so grateful to be given the platform to speak about this. So thank you to you and 502 Circle, the University of Louisville, because I am so, so proud to be a Cardinal. I really am. So yeah, L1C4 forever.
L1C4, baby. Let's go. Oh, I love it. Well, thank you, Amaya.
Thanks, Tori.
That's it for today's episode of Beyond the Court. Thanks for joining us, and don't forget to share and subscribe to Floyd Street Media on all platforms. I'm Tori Dilfer-Stringer. We'll see you next time.